A very good morning. Thank you for joining us for RCEP Way Forward press briefing. I am Assistant Secretary Alfredo of the GPI, and I will be your moderator for this event. This morning, we will be hearing insights on the benefits of the world's largest free trade deal for the Philippines, the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement, or RCEP, of which the Senate conferred its ratification last Tuesday, 21st of February 2020. To recall, in November 2020, ASEAN member states and 5 of its FTA partners, Australia, China, Japan, Korea, and New Zealand, signed the RCEP agreement. Considered to be the largest FTA in the world in terms of population and trade upon its entry into force, the agreement is seen by many as a renewed commitment of the region to open markets, facilitate trade, and achieve deeper economic cooperation as a way to build back better and stronger from the global and regional economic uncertainty brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. The DTI, in cooperation with the offices of the Senate President, Senator Zubiri, and Senate President Tempore, Legarda, is spearheading this briefing as part of our efforts to inform stakeholders of the FTA that is expected to advance economic integration and play an important role in the post-pandemic recovery of our country and of the region. For today's engagement, we will be hearing messages to be delivered by the DTI Secretary, as well as our distinguished co-sponsors of the RCEP. This will be followed by an open forum where participants will be given the opportunity to comment or to raise questions to the points conveyed by the speakers. So at this point, it is my honor to call on the Senate President Juan Migz.
Thank you. Thank you very much. USEC? ASEC. Thank you very much. Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat sa Senate Beat reporters. Alam ko, ang alam nyo, magla-lunch tayo. Pero mas bongga itong lunch na ito because I invited, of course, we invited Secretary Pascual with the DTI together with Senator Loren Legarda and DTI Assistant Secretary Allan Gepty. And we would like to first focus muna on the discussions on the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership. And I know marami po kayong katanungan dito sa RCEP at meron din po tayong kailangan mga liwanagin dahil pagkatapos po natin na ipasa nung last Tuesday ang RCEP ay mga grupo pa rin. Siyempre, bumabatikos dito sa partnership na ito. But sana po kaya po natin sagutin ito lahat. So, I'll keep the introduction short. Let me just briefly reiterate the most important points about RCEP. We are joining the largest free trade agreement in the world. Ito pong pinakamalaking free trade agreement sa buong mundo. Talo po yung North American Free Trade Agreement or NAFTA. Talo pa po yung ibang mga trade agreements in other countries. This comprises of 30% of the world's population, 30% of the world's GDP, 30% of the world's trade in 15 countries. Yung 10 bansa ng ASEAN or ASEAN Association of Southeast Asian Nations, and you have China, South Korea, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia. So talagang napakalaking trade body ito. Ang sabi nga nila, ito ba yung makakatulong? Nakatulong na ba ito sa ibang bansa sa ASEAN? I'm happy to announce that in 2022, when several ASEAN countries have already ratified this measure, for example, Vietnam's exports to RCEP countries reached 108 billion in 2022, 16.4% ang pag-akyat, 16% increase. Thailand's exports to RCEP countries since they started with RCEP reached 140 billion in 2022. That is a 7.1% increase. Yung Cambodia, lalo na yung garments industries, they earned $10 billion in just the first 3 quarters of 2022. That's 20% year-on-year growth pagpasok po nila sa RCEP. Kaya sinasabi ko nga, the proof of the pudding is in the eating. Diba? Sabi nila, may mga studies, pero ito na pinakamagandang study, which is basically the outcome of these countries. And also, if we join RCEP, we're looking at possibility of 2% increase in GDP. Pag talagang ginamitan natin itong mga advantages ng RCEP, kaya pa natin umakyat ng 2% increase in GDP. At ito siguro pinakamaganda. Within 8 years, by 2031, a study by Dr. Cesar Corralaton is that we will have about an additional 1.4 million jobs by 2031. That's 308,000 jobs in agriculture, 77,000 jobs in industries, and 991,000 in services. Ganun kadami ang aming expectations sa pag-approve nitong measure nito. On the agricultural concerns, kasi marami nga bumabati ko sa atin na bakit naman natin na-rush to, kawawa naman ang agrikultura. Nakikita naman namin ni Senator Loren Legarda, my Senate President Pro Tem, that number 1, hindi kasama ang major agricultural products dito sa RCEP na ito. Ang ibig ko po sabihin, as is, status quo ang tariff rates ng mga agricultural products katulad ng mais, kapalay, bigas, rice, corn, yung grains, fruits and vegetables, walang maiiba. Pati yung karne ng baboy, ng manok at baka, walang maiiba sa taripa nito. So, whether we join RCEP or not, it is still status quo. So definitely joining RCEP would be an advantage to many other industries that need the export markets. Kaya napakaganda at napakahalaga nito for the garments industry ng Pilipinas, furniture industry ng Pilipinas, manufacturing industries ng Pilipinas, yung paggawa po ng tuna, paggawa po ng sardinas, paggawa po ng canned fruits, puree and the like, fruit cocktails and the like, para makapasok po sa mga panibagong markets katulad ng New Zealand and Australia, and of course in China and Korea, as well as ASEAN countries, and of course in Japan. So, I'd like to reiterate, all our major agricultural products are excluded from tariff liberalization. Pero kahit papano, gumawa po kami ng hakbang, at hindi ko na babanggitin yun, I will leave it to Senator Loren Legarda, because she was leading the special technical working group, TWG, kasama ng stakeholders. Yung nailagay po namin dito sa resolution na ito, which are the guidelines. Ito po yung guidelines, ito po yung tinatawag natin instructions to government agencies, ay galing po sa mga stakeholders, and I will allow Senator Loren Legarda to discuss this further. I also want to congratulate her because we also are setting up a special oversight committee which she will be heading, because also she believes in putting her money where her mouth is. Basically, kung sinabi niya, we will oversee this all, yan ang mangyayari. And meron din Mr. Ordonez came out with an article the other day, and sabi niya, nagpapasalamat siya na nailagay po itong mga guidelines dito. Ernie Ordonez, he knows one of the oppositors. Pero may kakulangan pa, dahil ang pangako doon ni Senator Zubiri, we will come up with a multi-stakeholder advisory board. Ang sagot ko po dyan, let us elect first a special oversight committee on Monday. Once we elect the special oversight committee on Monday, the head of the special oversight committee now will come up with her... we did it na pala. Tapos na pala. Wednesday, we elected the special oversight committee, which the Senate President Pro Tempore is in charge, the chairperson. She will now come up with her advisory board. So yan na. At least pati yung mga oppositors kasama na sa advisory board. So with all that, now it is in the hands of government on how we can make this work. Kamay na ng executive yan. Wala na po sa aming kamay. Napapasalamat po ako sa 20 na senador na sumama sa amin sa pag-ratify nito. We also take, of course, the opinions of Senator Risa Ontiveros, who said no, as well as Senator Amy Marcos, who abstained. We respect each and every position of each and every member of the Senate. But I would like to make special mention to the 20 that stood fast and looked at the totality of how this can help our country move forward. Hindi po tayo pwede maging isolationist. Hindi ko po sabihin parang North Korea. Hindi po tayo pwede parang North Korea sa ASEAN. We have to join the largest trading group to avail of all the benefits for our people. And I stand by my vote. I stand by my position that this will be able to be a springboard for our country as a major trading hub in the region. So, maraming salamat, Asek. Thank you. Thank you again to my dear Senate President Pro Tempore, Senator Legarda, Allan, our Chief Negotiator and DTI Assistant Secretary, and of course, our very dear Secretary Pascual for his support. Day one, hindi po siya absent, nandun po siya sa deliberations. Again, maraming salamat. Blessed good morning to all.
Thank you, Senate President Zubiri. And now we kindly call on Senate President Pro Tempore Loren Legarda for her message.
Thank you very much, the Senate President that said it very briefly and comprehensively. First of all, I would like to thank you, Senate President Migz Zubiri, for giving me the challenge to head the subcommittee. When no one else wanted to do it, I heard my name being called in plenary. I don't think they even asked me. In short, the majority leader designated, they volunteered me while I was in the comfort room and I heard my name being called. And I said, what is that? You are chairing the subcommittee on foreign relations for RCEP. I said, why? He said, you are designated, that's your leadership role. Okay, so I take on the responsibility. And right away, I approached the chairman of the Foreign Relations Committee. I said, tell me, what is wrong with RCEP? And I was assured there is nothing wrong with RCEP. It is the agriculture sector's neglect and the smuggling and many other issues and the trade deficit, but not RCEP itself. I went to the other former chair of foreign relations who defended it for 1 year. I said to Sen Coco, what is wrong with RCEP? He said that essentially there is nothing wrong with RCEP. It is a smuggling and the lack of support in the agriculture sector. So thank you for giving me the challenge, but thank you all the more for the support that you and the leadership in our colleagues had given me. You're correct. The RCEP is the biggest trade agreement the world has ever seen to date. As the Senate President mentioned, that's 1/3, 29% of all our trade around the world. 29% of the global population, 29% of global GDP. Now, let's go to the bottom line. Ano bang magagawa ng RCEP para sa atin? According to studies conducted, and one is by Dr. Cororota, by 2031, there will be an increase in GDP, real GDP, by almost 2%, 1.93%. Hindi natin matatawaran ang 2% na pag-akyat ng gross domestic product. And reduction, pagbaba, ng consumer price index by almost 0.5%, 0.48%, and increase in factor prices for skilled wages by 1.61%, increase in 1.47% for unskilled wages, increase in factor prices for returns in capital by 1.45%, and land rent by 0.74%. Ano bang ibig sabihin ng ito? That is projected, I hope it comes true, and this is the collaborative effort, not of the legislature, but of the executive departments, DA, DTI, NEDA, Customs, DOF, everyone. There will be a reduction in poverty incidence, bababa, hopefully, ang paghihirap by 3.62%, reduction in poverty gap by 3.49%. reduction in poverty severity by 3.82%. Babantayan natin, kaya salamat kay Senate President Zubiri at napaunlakan niya ang ating mungkahi na magtatag hindi lamang ng Oversight Committee kung saan kasama ang liderato at ang mga mahahalagang chair ng komite, kundi na rin ang isang resolusyon na nagpapaloob ng lahat ng hinihingi ng sektor na umaangal. Sa nakita po ng milyon sa kasaysayan ng Senado na lahat ng hinihingi ng mga sektor na hindi raw nakonsulta sa nakaraang 10 taon sa negosasyon sa 3 administrasyon o 2 nakaraang administrasyon ay sinama po natin sa almost 15-page concurring resolution. Another study said that there will be a 10.47 increase in exports and 2.02 increase na in real GDP. You know, this agreement is so complicated. It has 510 pages. Honestly, I tried to read all, but I could not read all the annexes of 14,000 pages, the language on international trade. I know the media asked me when I arrived, baka daw joking dudugo ang ilong nila sa pag-recitation. Hindi ko po kayo tatanungin sa 14,000 annexes. Pwede niyong tanungin si ASEC Gepty. But levity aside, that's how complicated it is, but we try to simplify it by citing the benefits. It is true that agriculture in the Philippines has suffered for decades. Tandaan namin yan. Farmer ito si Senate President at saka doon nanggagaling ang pineapple and many products. Ako naman ay weekend farmer ng gulay, so alam natin kung gano'ng kahirap ito. So alam natin na maraming dapat gawin because of decades of neglect, mismanagement, and even corruption. So government must set up safety nets and budgets to make us competitive. But the trade deficits have remained and the agriculture sector remained stagnant. So we cannot allow those who produce our food on our table to be neglected and have no food. So it is this sentiment that they carry on their objections to RCEP, and that's also the reason why we included the recommendations in our resolution, which I hope by now we have given you a copy. So the tariff lines, as the Senate President mentioned, are 15 products, 15. There are 33 agriculture tariff lines and 15 products. Sinertuhan na po natin, siniyasat natin, inassure tayo ng DTI at DA na yung sensitibong mga produkto na kinatatakutan ng ating mga magsasaka, mangingisda, and SMEs, bakit po naman tayo papayag po na maaapektuhan sa masamang paraan ang MSMEs? Tayo po ang nag-author niya ng 207. So we will not allow that to happen. So I have a very long 10-page opening statement. I will just give you a copy so you can see the passion we put into this. But what's important is that we know the benefits to RCEP. And just maybe an example of a foreign trade agreement that you will recall was very recent. We were all covering the Senate on my last term, on the 3rd term, where we sponsored the EFTA with the non-EU countries, namely Liechtenstein, Iceland, Norway, and Switzerland. At the time that we sponsored it, with a unanimous concurrence of senators, there was a trade deficit between the 4 EFTA non-EU countries and the Philippines. Ang ibig sabihin ng trade deficit ay yung balance of trade ay hindi pabor sa atin. Pero, nung tinanong ko sa briefing, bago tanggapin yung mungkahin na ako'y mag-head ng subcommittee, sinabi sa akin ng DTI, in less than 4 years, even considering the 3-year pandemic, the balance of trade turned in favor of the Philippines, especially because Switzerland, one of the 4 EFTA countries, continues to import electric fans and vacuum cleaners from the Philippines made in Laguna on the Dyson brand, which is a UK brand, which is located in the Philippines. So, how micromanage ba o paano magandang example ng isang trade agreement na kabenepisyo sa ating manufacturing sector? And so, if a small FTA like EFTA during pandemic had favorably balance the trade in our favor. What more, the biggest trade deal in the world. So I hope that EFTA is a good example, and the biggest trade deal will go the same way. But we cannot do it alone. The DTI has to do its work. When the oppositors say that it will affect the trade deficit, alam nyo, panahon namin, tumanda na kami sa paglilingkod. The trade deficit has always been there. The trade deficit has been there since the 70s, right? It's been creeping in. 60s and 70s, so we cannot say that it is RCEP which will cause the trade deficit or previous trade agreements. Dapat gumalaw ng maliksi ang DA at ng DTI at lahat ng ahensya ng gobyerno. Ang ASEAN po, nagratifika na lahat. Imagine kung hindi po sumali ang Pilipinas. Tayo lang po, gaya ng sinabi ni Senate President, we cannot be isolationist. Ang hindi magpapababa ng taripa pagpasok ng ating mga produkto sa mga bansa na hindi ASEAN pero kasama sa RCEP gaya ng bansang Hapon. I made it an example and I'll say it again. Yung mga nagtatanim ng kakao sa Pilipinas na gustong mag-export ng tsokolate at marami niyan sa Mindanao, masasarap na Philippine chocolates. I think it's an emerging industry. Pagpasok sa Japan, pinapatawan ng ilang porsyento taripa pagpasok sa Japan? 23.8, almost 24%. But neighboring country Indonesia, which ratified RCEP, dahil nag-ratifika, ibababa ng bansang Hapon sa Indonesia sa kanilang tsokolate galing sa cacao farmers dahil sila yung RCEP. Anong bibilin ng mga Hapon? Yung 24% cheaper tsokolate from Indonesia or yung mas mahal na tsokolate galing Pilipinas? Again, I am simplifying by setting examples of how our non-ratification of RCEP would have impacted on just one small sector. Of course, that's not all there is to it. And so, having said that, we are justifying and giving you the rationale why the Senate concurred by a majority, big majority vote of 20 votes. And this started not in this administration, 2012. Noong 2012, nagdesisyon ang mga ASEAN ministers at mga pamahalaan na pumasok sa RCEP. 10 taon nagnegosasyon at ang chief negotiator ang siyang naging briefer, nag-brief sa amin ni Senate President noon. At 10 taon niya pinaghirapan at talagang tinanggal yung mga sensitibong produkto. Linagdaan yan ng Pangulong ng Duterte administration after many years of the Aquino administration negotiations. Hindi na ipasa dahil sa kakulungan sa panahon at maraming katanungan para bigyan naman ng pansin ang mga nag-o-oppose. Dinigin ko po. Una, kinalap ko lahat ng materyales mula kay Senator Pimentel at Senator Marcos at binasa ko at ang tanggapan ko at lahat ng staff, ang gagaling ni OSP, ay tumulong sa akin. Salamat ng kanyang magagaling na mga abogado rin na staff. And so in 2 weeks, halos mula kami tulong, nagbabasa from 2 former senators who chaired it and from the DTI and DA, information overload na. And then we finished it in record time in 2 weeks. Hindi po natin binadali dahil 10 taon na, no, 11 years since 2012. And negotiations were very detailed. Hindi pa rin kami kontento dyan. Kaya nga naglagay po ng resolution. And this resolution is a manifestation of the opposition of sectors. It's also a guideline and recommendation for the agencies of government to comply. We're happy that the Ways and Means Chair and the Chair of Finance will be a member so that even in the crafting of the NEP of every agency, please, Sec Pascual and whoever is in charge of doing the NEP of DA must take into consideration the protection, safety nets, and support we need to give our MSMEs and our agriculture sector. Having said that, I am grateful to the media for helping the Senate explain to the Filipino people that we are with you in this together. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Very nice.
Thank you, Senator Tempore Legarda. And now I would like to give the floor to DTI Secretary Alfredo Pascual.
Thank you. Let me greet, of course, our Senate President, Miguel Zubiri, and Senate President pro tempore Loren Legarda, colleagues from DTI, members of the media. Good morning to all. In my business meetings during presidential visits to our partner countries, I had invariably been asked by prospective foreign investors as to when the Philippines would ratify RCEP. Several of these investors were looking at the Philippines as a production hub from which they will export to other countries around us, particularly to countries that were already then members of RCEP. As you know, DTI is the government department mandated to facilitate trade, industry, and investments in our country. Thus, as DTI Secretary, I have taken the responsibility to strongly push for RCEP's ratification in the executive branch. Happily, in a cabinet meeting last October 2022, a decision was reached to formally request the Senate's concurrence with the ratification of RCEP. Fast forward, we're here now. We got the Senate's ratification last Tuesday, and we're now discussing with you our way forward. Let me thank again Senate President Migz and Senate President pro tempore Loren Legarda for carrying on with the ratification of the Senate's ratification of RCEP. Given the challenges and issues we have faced, we also commend their leadership in explaining RCEP to the Senate and in shepherding its ratification. On DTI's part, of course, our chief negotiator, Allan Gepty, provided technical support and inputs in the Senate RCEP's deliberation. Last Tuesday, favorable action by the Senate was a clear demonstration of the value of close collaboration and cooperation between the executive and legislative branches of the government in expediting action which are important in boosting the country's economic development and growth. We take note of the innovative approach adopted by the RCEP sponsors in the Senate. The idea of creating an oversight committee to monitor the implementation of RCEP, which is a very much welcome move. We welcome this development and see it as a signal to further intensify our efforts to support and assist our many local stakeholders, particularly, as mentioned, the agricultural sector and the MSMEs. We are also thankful to those groups and sectors who submitted opposing views on RCEP, as they gave us a good understanding of issues that have to be addressed. We will continue to engage with them and work towards the betterment of our country. The concurrence of the Senate on this important trade deal comes at a time when our President has been diligently promoting the country as a prime investment destination in the region. This supports our message that the Philippines is open for business and that we are able to provide a conducive and enabling environment for investments. RCEP is also critical in attracting more investments in the country, investments that will spur our country's industrialization, which in turn will create more sustainable and higher paying jobs for our people. RCEP is aligned with President Ferdinand Marcos Jr.'s directive to bring in more investments into the country to further spur economic growth, generate the jobs that I referred to earlier, and bring shared prosperity to all. At the regional front, RCEP aims at maintaining ASEAN centrality within the broader region. It is not just a simple trade agreement, providing enhanced market access and a stable regulatory framework. RCEP is a strategic tool in ensuring the region's continued economic advantage globally and will help maintain a balance of power within the region. On this note, the Philippines must make its mark in the region where we are a part of. Let me just highlight some benefits to add to what we've heard already of what the RCEP agreement will bring about. RCEP promotes economic efficiency of member states, including the Philippines. So with the competition to be brought about by RCEP, we are looking forward and with our support in making our companies in the Philippines more productive and more competitive. RCEP strengthens linkages in sectors such as manufacturing, technology, and agriculture. This is in line with our industrialization strategy, which is to integrate investment, trade, and industry. RCEP reinforces MSME's participation in the global value chain network. Through improved market access for goods and services, as well as stable and predictable rules, RCEP provides a platform to encourage more investment in the country. RCEP provides a framework of rules and disciplines to ensure regulatory consistency, create a conducive environment that is key to ensuring the confidence of the business sector and investors and spur further economic growth. Note, however, that these advantages that we've been referring to are anchored on how we utilize the RCEP agreement, on how we get our companies in the Philippines make full use of the advantages offered by RCEP. As we move forward, the department will have to work closely with other agencies in the government, such as the Department of Agriculture, Bureau of Customs, National Economic Development Authority, the Department of Finance, and of course, our private sector partners, as has already been pointed out by Senate President Pro Tempore Loren Legarda. On this endeavor, we call on the support of media and help us in furthering our advocacy for the development of our country. Thank you.
We believe the RCEP presents an important opportunity for our businesses due to the improved regional trade routes and more resilient supply chain connectivity. It similarly provides benefits to Philippine consumers as they stand to gain from lower costs and access to a wider array of goods and services. We hope this forum will serve as a platform for participants to have a clear understanding of what RCEP is and what it can provide. So now we go to the open forum. I would just like to request for anyone who would like to ask any questions to approach the two microphones and state your name and the company you represent.
After the ratification of RCEP, when can we expect to feel and enjoy the benefits of joining RCEP?
Yeah, I'll just talk about the technicalities. Between the time the ratification was made and the time we submit our instrument of ratification to the ASEAN Secretariat, we'll have to do the necessary paperwork. That will take about 30 days. Then, after the date of lodgement of our certificate or instrument of ratification, we will count 60 days before the effectivity of our membership in RCEP. So from then, it's already open for full use of our investors, of our companies, so that they can take advantage of the provisions of RCEP.
Sure, since we are in the period of recovery after the COVID-19 pandemic, so yung pag-join natin sa RCEP, mas mapapabilis po ba economic recovery?
Surely, mapapabilis because the way to recover is to stimulate investment in our country. So new businesses can be established and new businesses will create the jobs that were lost during the pandemic. And also, create the possibility of strengthening our MSMEs that will act as suppliers, to the businesses, the bigger businesses that will be established here.
Siguro, just to add, Ate Sally, nakita naman natin yung experience ng Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, Malaysia. Immediately after they entered the partnership, talagang gumanda ang kanilang export industry. So, depende din sa ating mga exporters yan at manufacturers. Kailangan mabilis din sila gumalaw to take advantage of this partnership agreement. But, for example, ang sinabi ni Secretary, yung foreign direct investment alone, pag hindi po tayo sumali sa RCEP, hindi po tayo papansinin. Kasi kung may Amerikanong grupo na gusto pumunta dito, may taga-Europe na gusto pumunta dito para mag-set up ng isang factory, para mag-export ng mga gamit sa ASEAN and these other free trade areas like South Korea, China, and New Zealand, Japan, and Australia, syempre dun sila sa bansa na kasama sa RCEP. I'll give you an example. I brought to the office last week yung grupo, and we recognized them in the plenary. As a matter of fact, we had lunch with them. Si Phil Aldridge of EVT vehicles, electric vehicles, the biggest American producer of electric vehicles in the United States for public utilities. Yung mga para sa school bus, para sa mga truckers, they are looking at relocating to the Philippines. Pero tinawagan nga niya ako last week after he left and asked, are we part of RCEP? Because if we're part of RCEP, it makes it easier for him na makakabenta po sa 15 countries or 14 countries at the time. And I said to him, I guarantee you by next week we will be able to ratify it. So na-excite po siya. He's coming back in 3 weeks' time with a bigger delegation to close the deal sa Clark. Galing po silang Clark. So ibig sabihin, magkakaroon talaga tayo ng mas maraming foreign direct investments. That is the, that is the immediate effect. That is the consequence of our ratification. Magkakaroon talaga ng mas maraming locators pupunta dito, which will bring in jobs, which will have a domino effect. Kasi, siyempre, yung EVT, yung grupo nila, the biggest manufacturer of electric vehicles, they're also looking at now manufacturing the batteries in the Philippines. Kasi kinukunan nila ng batteries, Taiwan. So they said to be able to avail of RCEP, they asked the Taiwanese partners to move to Clark, to build now the batteries in Clark, and get this raw material from the Filipinos. Kasi yung nickel and the chromite and mga nickel ore na dinadala pa sa China, sa Taiwan, para gawin ang battery doon, dito na gagawin. So it opens up a whole new level of trade and commerce in the Philippines. Kaya ako excited kasi kung hindi po tayo sumali dyan, hindi tayo papansin. He was going to move to Johor, Malaysia. Lalagay daw niya dapat yung head office sa Singapore, manufacture in Johor, which is 1 hour away from Singapore.